Hey guys, it's Ember from MMOs.com, and I'm doing another quick weekly news recap of all major MMO news and announcements the week ending February 27th, 2017. This is episode number 84th recap, and the first bit of news this week comes from Mu Legend. Closed beta 2 for the game started this last week and actually ends tomorrow, but Webzen did announce that the game was starting its open beta test in South Korea on March 23rd. Now obviously that doesn't mean the global version will start beta on the same day, but it does mean the game is making progress towards an eventual release. We speculated on our Grindfest video that we think global open beta will begin sometime in April or May, but we'll have to wait and see for an official announcement. Next up, a bit of news for Kritika Online. In mass, the company best known for publishing Terra announced this last week that they'll be publishing the anime-stylized action MMORPG in the West sometime in Q2 of 2017, which means sometime this summer. The game is currently playable in Southeast Asia, but an official Western release should give the game a lot more attention, plus obviously a lot less lag. The core gameplay in Kritika is similar to games like Dungeon Fighter Online and Vindictus in that it has persistent hubs and instance dungeons. And much like those games, the combat in Kritika Online is quite fun. And we'll have a firm release date for you guys as soon as one is officially announced. Moving right along, Albion Online finally has an official release date, and that's July 17th. It's likely going to be the first big Western crowdfunded MMORPG to officially launch, so congrats to the folks over at Sandbox Interactive. The biggest news with the launch is that the game won't have any more wipes going forward, so players can finally start investing in that character. Albion has had a bit of an interesting development cycle. They first wanted to make the game free to play, but later switched to a buy to play model. I'm just glad that they're finally launching. They also released a bit of interesting news with this announcement, and that was that they sold over 200,000 Founders Packs to date. So interest in Albion Online remains strong, and justifiably so. I mean, Albion is not just another cookie cutter MMORPG. They're going for a sandbox approach, and it looks to be inspired by classics like RuneScape and Ultima Online. And personally, I had a lot of fun with it back when we did a Sunday Funday video for it, and I look forward to playing it at launch. Up next, two bits of interesting news from Black Desert Online, one from Kakao Games Europe and the other from GameNet, the Russian publisher. Kakao announced that the Dark Knight class will be live on March 1st, with character creation available now. The second part of this story is actually from the Russian publisher, and the Kakao Games version of the game may not be the first version of Black Desert to hit Steam, as GameNet already submitted their game for Steam Greenlight, and that is the free-to-play Russian version, which may actually end up beating the Western version on Steam. And of course, exposing the Russian game on Steam as a free-to-play title may attract a lot of Steam users to at least try the free-to-play version. But beyond that, we don't know when the Russian version will actually be on Steam. All we know is that it's on Greenlight. If you want to play Black Desert Online, it's on sale once again for $10. I still say it's well worth the $10, even though I think it'll go free-to-play eventually. But so far, I've been wrong. And speaking of Steam launches, the FreeStyle series expanded to football this last week with FreeStyle Football, also known as soccer for us silly Americans. And yes, it's the same Joy City, the guys behind FreeStyle Street Basketball, and it features much of the same art and simple pick up and play, and yet difficult to master mechanics that made FreeStyle Street Basketball quite popular. I personally never liked sports games, but I enjoyed FreeStyle Basketball game quite a bit, and I expect FreeStyle Football to do quite well as well. As of this video, the game is hitting about 3,700 concurrent users at peak hours on Steam, which is quite good. I did a first look video for the game already, and it's quite fun, worth checking out. Up next, we got another Steam launch, this time for a pair of older MMORPGs from Netgame. Hero Online and Scions of Fate are coming to Steam, or at least trying to. Despite their age, both Hero and Scions of Fate are still doing quite well in South Korea and China, and they still have a pretty core audience in the West. And yes, the video you're seeing in the background is the official video they put up for Steam Greenlight for Hero Online. And it looks quite awful. 240p, my friend, we meet again. And when you're seeing a video like this being used as the official video on Steam Greenlight, it makes you kind of think they're not taking it too seriously. This video was actually just uploaded this week as well. So somebody at the developer's office was like, this is the video that best represents Hero Online. Let's do it. But video quality issue aside, I do think it's a good move that a lot of these older MMORPGs are coming on Steam. The core audience that still plays Hero can access it much more easily through Steam, so it's a net plus for the game's player base. And speaking of old MMORPGs launching on Steam, Anarchy Online officially launched on Steam this last week, with the same free-to-play plus optional subscription model it has had on its official site for a while. Interestingly enough though, with the Steam launch also includes an optional $99.99 purchase, which allows players to skip all the leveling and start at level 200. But fear not, the grind doesn't stop there. Max level is 220 at the moment. What's funny about this package is that the items included in the bundle, which can be used to instantly gain levels up to 200, are called heckler juices, implying that the leveling process is some sort of heckle/inconvenience. I don't mean any disrespect to Anarchy Online though. The game survived the test of time and has been around since 2001, and is certainly not the only MMO that lets players skip to higher levels. But yeah, you can play Anarchy Online on Steam now. Next up, yet another MMORPG launched on Steam this week, and it's Granado Espada. This one is noteworthy because it's been listed on Steam as coming soon multiple times in the past, and it looks like they finally were able to launch after multiple attempts. The game originally launched back in 2007 in North America, making it over 10 years old now. But despite its age, Granado Espada is actually a unique game with a remarkable musical score. If anything, I strongly recommend you listen to the game's soundtrack. It's by Soundtemp, the people who did the music for Ragnarok Online and Tree of Savior. Some of the best music I've heard in an MMORPG, and the gameplay is different as well, so if you never played it, you can now play it on Steam super easily. Up next, the last bit of Steam MMORPG news, I swear. Asta Online, once known as the Korean World of Warcraft, is coming back. The game failed in South Korea after running for 2 years and shut down in a mere 7 months after Webzen brought it to the West. But perhaps Asta Online can find a new breath of life on Steam. So yes, that's right, we got another old MMORPG relaunching on Steam. This time it's through a company called Move Games, the company behind Digimon Masters Online. Why on earth Move Games thinks that they can make Asta Online a success is beyond me. It failed in Korea, it failed in the West through Webzen, but I guess the third time's a charm. Regardless, this is definitely good news for the people who did enjoy the game. No word on an actual release date just yet. All we know is that Move Games is trying to get it on Steam. And moving right along, the sad saga of Landmark officially ended this last week with the game finally shutting down for good. The game had a lot of promise when it was first announced as a companion project to EverQuest Next, but given the cancellation of EverQuest Next, the demise of Landmark was already foretold. Now the game will only live on the MMOs.com graveyard. It's sad to see this one go, but it was inevitable. It just didn't live up to all the promises that were made, and rest in pepperoni, Landmark. Up next, some big news from Hi-Res Studios. The company launched Open Beta Patch 44 this last week and introduced new legendary cards, which would primarily be obtained through a new currency called Essence. The Paladins community was outraged by the move and called it pay to win. Actually, there was a big revolt on the Hi-Res Reddit, and as soon as Hi-Res became aware of the outrage, lead game designer Drybear quickly took to Reddit to address player concerns, and they actually ended up dropping the cost of legendary cards considerably and increased the essence value of duplicate common cards so players can get essence more quickly. And this actually ended up satisfying players. What's remarkable here though is how quickly Hi-Res responded to player concerns and came up with a solution that satisfied most parties. And it's always good to see the communication between the player base and the developers move so quickly. Normally, developers kind of ignore the player concerns when it comes to monetization. Here, they heard the players loud and clear, and good things happened. Up next, in some not-so-drama-filled news, images of New World were spotted on Amazon's Lumberyard page, and New World is that new MMORPG Amazon Game Studios is working on. So little is known about the game, but we've seen these 2 screenshots, and that's it. It does show us that progress is being made on the game, and it shows that they have not changed the name of the game, which is still New World. Hopefully, we'll get some more news of substance relatively soon, but we'll have to wait. Next up, a patch came out for Guild Wars 2 this last week, which rebalanced and tweaked all of the game's classes. Basically, every class in the game got some changes, as well as some quality of life improvements, including fixes to World vs. World PvP. Even though no new content was added with this patch, it's great to see the folks over at ArenaNet still working on balancing everything out, and they promised that if anything was over-tweaked or under-tweaked, they'd make sure they get it right in the next patch. And moving right along, some news for Drakensang Online, an older yet still popular browser-based MMORPG developed and published by BigPoint. And news here is that they're getting a new expansion tomorrow on February 28th called Sands of Malice, which will take players to the homeland of the faithful character Zahir, which actually makes me think of Legend of Korra Zahir, but that's just me. But anyways, the important news here is that the game's level cap will be increased to 55, a new Deeps of Demise arena is being added, new dungeons with higher difficulties, and a new rune system, as well as a bunch of other goodies. And again, this is all launching tomorrow, so if you still play Drakensang, you got a lot to look forward to. Also in ARPG style news, Guardians of Ember actually just launched Act 4 for their game, as well as increased the game's level cap to 50. And to celebrate that bit of news, Incel Games is putting Guardians of Ember on sale on Steam for 25% off, which means it can be had for 20 bucks. Personally, with Mu Legend right on the horizon, I'm not so sure I'm willing to pay for an ARPG right now. And by the looks of it, I'm not the only one. The game is getting about 80 to 200 players online at any given time, which isn't bad, but it's not great either. And moving right along into the mobile front, Final Fantasy Brave Exvius received a major update this last week called Update 2.0, which is the game's largest update to date. If you haven't played this one, it's a turn-based hero collector RPG from Square Enix with over 20 million downloads. But the 2.0 update itself continues the game's narrative, as well as introduces a bunch of side quests and quality of life improvements and a bunch of other goodies. The most important thing though for most players is that they're giving everybody 11 free summons, so you get a chance at drawing your OP legendaries. Next, the February update for Archeage is here, and it adds with it the Thunderwing Titan named Reedwin, who is an epic new boss in the game. More importantly though, they did add another feature to the game, and they made underwear a stat item. It's now officially a piece of gear with stat imbued effects, making it a key piece of gear in the game. This is clearly what players have been demanding for a long time. Yes, underwear upgrades. In fact, the underwear upgrading system is called Underwear Synthesis. How ridiculous, but yeah, it's there. Next up, a bit of news that we failed to cover earlier. Savage Resurrection, the remake of Savage, went free to play last month in January. Nobody really talked about it because I didn't even notice it. But the game is now free to play, and since it went free to play, the player base jumped and is now dipped back below 25, which is unfortunate. I will likely do a first look for the game only because I loved Savage 2 and I played it to death. So I will do a first look for Savage Resurrection and we'll see how it goes. The next and last bit of news this week comes from Darkfall Rise of Agon, and the news is they're set to launch officially on May 5th. It's worth mentioning the subtitle Rise of Agon because there's actually a couple Darkfall projects in the works. This is a revival of the original game, whereas Darkfall New Dawn, the other one, is taking the core formula and trying to make a new game out of it. Again, the launch is May 5th. It will be a subscription-based game though, so I'm kind of curious what kind of audience it can retain. I'm sure some of the old school Darkfall fans will play, but we'll have to wait and see. Anyway guys, that's it for MMO News this week. I'll see you guys tomorrow for the podcast. Later guys.